Anyway, welcome. My name is Doug Bass. I'm an architect with a company called Go2Group. We do have a booth over in the booth hall. In addition to our integration application that we're going to talk about today called Connect All, we also do all Atlassian services. So if you have Jira, Confluence, Bamboo, any of those products, one whole side of our company just does professional services on that side too. So we'd be glad to help you in any way that we can. But today, we're going to talk about golly DevOps. That's why we're all here, right? So of course, these days we're all in the area of digital business. Many organizations reimagining their business and operating models based on digital capabilities. And it's expected to be a significant aspect of achieving competitive advantage and differentiation using information and technology. The speed of technological advancements is creating a division between winners and losers. I think that's probably why we're here, to figure out how we can be more in the winner's circle, right? Enterprises can't confront digital business demands with the traditional approach. Somehow we need to be more responsive. As your business moves to become digital, you need to be able to respond to the threats and opportunities of the digital economy. You need to recognize the need to innovate more, manage uncertainties better, and most importantly, establish more agility to meet the needs of your business. Agile and DevOps are the most common capabilities that organizations start to develop, and it's a great place to start because it teaches many of the principles that enable an organization to be responsive. But transitioning from traditional to agile approaches requires creating a culture that embraces agile principles to be successful. I think a lot of us have been down this road the last 10 years or so, trying to become that agile organization and wondering, where do we go from there? How do we solve more of these problems? Of course, the first issue faced by your organization is to get a, quote, we environment right within your organization. This means establishing the team that removes the boundaries between dev and testing and ops and analysis, et cetera, et cetera. There's just not one team, no hierarchy where developers consider themselves more important than the testers, right? We're all on the same team, all working together. Next, that we culture must expand beyond applications. Agile is not just about doing things differently, it's about doing business differently. This means blurring the lines between business and dev by including one or more people from business on the team. The we culture also expands to include operations, of course. This is known as DevOps and involves integrating deployment, production roles into the dev team to form a cross-functional DevOps team. Production issues become the development issues as well. While many development teams are now applying agile software dev practices to projects, the development and operations teams on a given project are not always aligned. Generally, two organizations responsible for delivering software to users, development and operations. Dev teams are measured on the features they deliver to your users, while operation teams are measured by the stability of the system after it has been delivered. These are all competing interests within your organization because the dev team is not incentivized to ensure the stability of the system once it delivers to the operations team. Likewise, the operations team are not afforded the appropriate incentives to care about the frequency of releasing new features to users because its responsibility is ensuring the uptime of the system. It was this environment that saw the birth of DevOps. DevOps is a response to these continual frustration of lack of collaboration and communication between devs and operations on software products that increase the time and labor involved in delivering and maintaining software systems. And you know, a lot of times we'll talk about development and operations, but really from a realistic point of view within the enterprise, it's really more than that, isn't it? I mean, you look at the front end, you look at the requirements, you look at the customer interaction, it's really all of these cycles that, in my mind, apply to what really makes DevOps successful. So it helps to try to improve and increase the communication and collaboration by breaking down those barriers and the silos between all these different teams. But DevOps doesn't have a concrete set of mandates. There's no manifesto, there's no standards, there's no framework like ITIL or CMMI, making it subject to a more liberal interpretation of what DevOps means. You know, it's still fairly new in the industry, and we're still trying to figure that out. For many, it's elusive enough to make it difficult to know where to begin and how to measure success. Because DevOps is a philosophy. There's no rules, there's no manuals. It's a change in the entire IT culture based on, in my opinion, 4 principles. Continuous integration, of course, continuous test, continuous development, and one of the new things that we're seeing to start to come up is continuous monitoring. It's an interesting aspect, certainly a required aspect of this whole process. Continuous delivery is an overarching principle that makes use of course, continuous integration and continuous deployment. Continuous integration is building, integrating, testing, deploying software on a repeatable and frequent basis, which is a challenge if you're coming from the waterfall world and you're used to getting your requirements, doing design, doing development. How can you turn all that around into a more frequent basis? And certainly one of the challenges in DevOps that Agile attempts to address for us. So the objective for continuous integration is to reduce the development risk and the cost while improving the software quality. So continuous deployment is the practice of automatically deploying released software into production. And finally, continuous testing is about building test automation. What a concept. We're also over at the HP conference this week, Quality Center, ALM, you know, all of their testing tools, so that's also an interesting aspect into this whole DevOps process, that test automation. Test automation in a pipeline that never finishes. There's no gates, there's no checks, it just continually goes on as you do more and more frequent releases. So of course this continuous testing requires continual fine-tuning. There's always a need to balance the resources available and the pressure for greater speed with the right level of quality, with an acceptable level of risk. Certainly lots and lots of challenges there. So what are our first steps to rolling out such a DevOps kind of environment to our organization? So of course, if you look at this slide, you've ever rolled out any kind of projects, I mean, there's nothing, you know, brand new here. And really in an organization meaning to roll out DevOps, that's the way to look at it. It's just another project. It's get the right people on the team, focus on what the requirements are for that project, be consistent within that overall approach, and agree on what your objectives are, scope are. You know, typical project management kind of stuff. But within DevOps, it seems to be this magic word and this magic thing that will solve all problems. But from us IT managers, again, it's just another way of rolling out another improvement to your process. Maybe very similar to when you brought Agile in. So of course, people are the right ingredient in the right kind of DevOps initiative. Having the right staff is going to make or break that initiative. Critical to designate people who are willing, and able, and dedicated from the start on the DevOps initiative. Willing in that they understand the initiative requires potentially a new way of working, and able in that they're able of doing work in a new way, one that is different from the way they have been doing their current work. Of course, you need to have a requirements or a skills list of the kind of people that you want on this initiative. Selecting and getting the right people with those right kind of skills will really break or make it a success. So sometimes you have to hire from the outside, sometimes your culture is so ingrained, the way you do things, sometimes an outside firm can help you have that view that you're probably not used to seeing. Because maybe not your existing employees, maybe they won't always fit to this, They're doing legacy, they're doing mainframes, have been for 50 years. It's kind of hard to think about, probably like when you did Agile, how to roll this stuff out. So of course, identify what phase of your existing processes where the limiting bottleneck is. In this particular example, I think they're pointing out, what an Agile process might help, but there's lots of other areas that you want to address during your DevOps initiative to make sure that you're identifying and you're hitting the right bottlenecks, that you're addressing each of those. Find that most limiting bottleneck is certainly very important. So of course, when you're looking at your DevOps process, you're talking about probably lots of different tools. Developers are using one set of tools. Maybe you acquire other business units, and those developers are using different tools than the other developers. They could be using Rally or version 1 or Jira, IBM Rational Products. It could be a whole range of just the developers. And then you have everybody else. You have your planners, you have your business analysts, people doing your builds, your release management, your change management, operations. All of those are all using different tools, and that's one of the challenges in rolling out a DevOps project is, sure, your objective is to get all the teams working better together, but that's practically an impossible task if your tools aren't working together too. So that's what our product Connect All is all about. The objective is to be able to synchronize not only the information between the applications, but align the processes better between your different teams and your different tools. I mean, that's always the challenge, right? I mean, even if you have one team using Jira and another team using Jira, they're not going to have the same workflows, they're not going to have the same processes. And really, those teams, when they're working independently, they probably don't even realize that. They don't realize that their definition of done is different, their definition of priority or severity. But when you start integrating these teams and these tools, all of a sudden you start realizing, wow, there's all these gaps between these different applications. So when you're using the Connect All integration platform, the whole purpose is to reduce the errors, reduce the extra amount of work that you're having to do, to have the teams work together, and for the tools to represent what work the teams are working on. Right now, maybe, a typical example, maybe your service desk is in, your ITSM stuff could be in service desk or remedy, something like that. And your developers that are fixing those tickets that are getting logged are over in a Jira Quality Center, version 1, whatever. And maybe to keep this work flowing, they're copy pasting, they're having a lot of meetings, what's the status, back and forth. Again, that's the area where an integration tool makes it really useful to be able to synchronize this data automatically behind the scenes, that the teams don't even need to worry about that. So that's one of the objectives with the integration platform, just high fidelity synchronization without any interruption of operators to keep going. Of course, it's very configurable. Again, teams work in different ways, applications work in different ways, and you need some flexibility in this integration. If you've ever tried to do an integration like this in-house, it's like, okay, well, today I'm saying, well, I want to take these tickets, say, from Quality Center, these defects, I want to put them over to Jira so the developers can start working on these defects that test identified. And I know these fields I want to map, and this is, but next week, next month, the requirements change, go back to that application again. So any kind of integration platform you use, you really want it to be very easy to change those configurations. You want it to be customizable, and probably something you don't consider when you start grading this integration in-house is how are you going to implement on your different business rules? You know, I know that I need to do these things over in this system, but might want to combine fields. I might want to have complex business rules implemented as I transfer the data over. You need an integration platform, either developed internally or a COTS product like Connect All that has support for something like that you can manage those very specific and changing business rules. Of course, you're in an enterprise area, it's got to be bulletproof. I mean, it's got to run. You've got to have your teams working and collaborating, working together all the time. Probably 24/7 you're doing development around the world. So you definitely want all of it to be definitely bulletproof and enterprise ready. Connect All is built not on top of an internally developed custom application engine, queuing engine. We built it on top of a commercial enterprise service bus. We built it on top of MuleSoft. So we definitely want to leverage those capabilities that are available within an enterprise product. So some of those features that are available within Connect All, and a lot of those we do derive from MuleSoft, is clustering, load balancing, failover, multiple servers, whether you want it on the cloud or on premise. We have a cloud solution that you can leverage, or you can download the product, install it on your own VM within your cloud. Of course, multi-tenancy, high security. We work with a lot of banks, a lot of insurance companies. We know your security policies, your network challenges that you go through, and we definitely help you work through all of those interesting scenarios. Of course, traceability, audit trails, all sorts of stuff that your CIOs are going to demand in such an application. So Connect All, it turns this mess, which is probably pretty typical, into something more organized, more structured, and better defined. Of course, in going through this kind of process, you're probably doing an inventory of your systems that you may have never done before. You never realized that you had all these little departmental servers and all these different teams. And as it starts to roll out, you start getting calls and emails from these other teams. Well, can we get a part of this process? We see the improvements you're getting. We'd like to leverage some of those too. So Connect All, it doesn't replace any of the systems that you're currently working on. It just connects them. You know, we've worked with some large banks and they have like 20, 30 JIRA's quality centers around the world, and of course we'll help them collapse those as much as possible. But eventually you get to the point where we still have these 2, 3, 4, 5 systems around the world that we just can't lose. They're very business specific, and we just have no choice other than to integrate them, datas and processes. So with Connect All, the whole idea is we tear down the walls between these applications and your teams, allowing them to work better together. So if you are interested in Connect All, how would you go about doing this? We have several license plans that are very flexible. Unlike our competitor, we do allow you to download evaluation licenses, try it out, kick the tires. A 2-week evaluation license, which is enough to see if it handles your basic needs. If you want to go for a longer term, if you're a larger enterprise, you're probably going to need some more consulting support from us, as well as a longer license, probably a month evaluation that goes for 2, 3, 4 months, which is kind of typical in a big business. So we have other license plans that can help you with that, what we call a POC license, charged on a monthly basis, includes consulting services. We also have distinctions between both a standard and an enterprise production license. So we have a lot of features within our product that we consider enterprise level, you know, synchronization or connections with like Active Directory, connections with your data warehouse. So those we consider more enterprise features, where in a smaller environment where you're integrating maybe only 2 applications, 3 applications, a few projects, that would be more at a standard level. So features, the scale of your deployment, how many things you want to integrate, All of that sort of defines that line between a standard deployment and an enterprise deployment. And again, enterprise includes significant amounts of services and support when we roll it out. So some examples of some of our customers, I don't know why we call them users and customers. Lockheed Martin, IBM Doors. We're one of the few companies in the world could ever figure out how to integrate IBM Doors. It's certainly a very challenging beast, but it's widely used in the defense industry and the medical devices industry. IBM Doors is pretty much prevalent for those kind of environments. Banks like Morgan Chase, American Financial, and my old alma mater, GE, stands for Great Engineering, right? Health services, energy, engines, several divisions of GE that we've worked with. So I was talking about data warehousing. So as you can imagine, this data is going through our data hub and getting synchronized back and forth. And a lot of enterprises have a data warehouse solution. They have hundreds or thousands of ETL scripts. It's capturing all this data from all these different applications. And then they're spitting it all in the data warehouse. And you probably have probably tens, 50, 60 ETL developers, and that's all they do, is they keep the system running day and night. So we were thinking, since we have this data hub and all the raw data is going, what a great place to grab this data and put it over into a staging area where you could take all of that information and then eventually deploy it over on your data warehouse. For one thing, now you have a single central place to write all your ETL scripts, take all that data, and put it over in your data warehouse. And it's pretty much real time. As that data is going through your data hub, it's getting pushed over into your data warehouse. Of course, it's very extendable. We do a minor manipulation of the data when it goes into your staging area. But that's an excellent central point to run all your ETL scripts, to dimension, pivot, do whatever you want for your reporting and your dashboarding needs. Of course, it follows all the same enterprise standards that we're using within ConnectAll, so very much applicable deploying into an enterprise environment. And just like ConnectAll, it's also very graphical user interface driven. So it's a very rare case if you need to do any scripting or programming, it's all driven by the user interface. So how is this useful? I mean, who would use a product like this? Of course, I'm talking to the choir if you already have a big data warehouse, but certainly if you're just starting to go down that road and realizing that there's a whole bunch of data and metrics in all your systems, how do we leverage all that? From a project planning perspective, of course, improving your estimation, increasing your resource optimization, better feature prioritization, all of those things really apply for your planners. From the developer's perspective, of course, if I can have dashboards, if I can have a better holistic view of what's going on with my defects patterns, my releases, that's gonna certainly can be reused within development, increasing efficiency there. From the testing team, I mean, it's really common to use a data warehouse, either the developers testing or the operations team from the test perspective to improve that efficiency by eliminating those testing roadblocks. You now get a better idea what's going on. Operations, of course, now you have a way of creating a continuous feedback loop to see how you're doing on your continuous improvement processes. Roll out a new process, you have statistics that either prove or disprove that that process was effective. So that's my slide presentation. Any questions there? I can do a little demo of ConnectAll if you would like to see what it looks like and what it takes to set that up. But before we do that, any questions from this perspective? Come on. Questions in the back. Fire away.
So you talked about culture as far as trying to incorporate DevOps. How have need or trying to make everyone work together.
Yeah. That's one of the big challenges in setting up this DevOps transition team is having the right people that are forward-thinking about not so much where you've been within your organization, but where you want to take the organization to. I think that's one of the biggest factors for success that I've seen. And like I was saying, a lot of organizations, they might not necessarily have those right talents, those right thought leaders within the company. You might need to go out to an outside firm and say, hey, we need some help. We realize we have gaps and deficiencies, that we're just not competing well in the marketplace because of those gaps. Maybe we need some help. So really depends on your organizations and how structured and formal they are, if they're willing to move into the future. And I think, one of those, if your boss, your manager said, you should go to DevOps and learn about this and see what it's all about. Right there, that shows me that you do have some people within your organization that, okay, we do have some interest in going down this road.